Poverty reaches a 52-year peak. At least another 2.6 million people slipped into poverty in the United States last year, the Census Bureau has reported, and the number of Americans living below the official poverty line, 46.2 million people, was the highest number in the 52 years the Bureau has been publishing figures on it. And in more new signs of distress among the middle class, median household incomes fell last year to levels last seen in 1996. Economists seized on a telling statistic or sign. It was the first time since the Great Depression that the median American household had a lower income, adjusted for inflation, than 13 years earlier, said Lawrence Katz, an economics professor at Harvard University. This is truly a lost decade, Professor Katz said. We think of America as a place where every generation is doing better, but we're looking at a period when the median family is in worse shape than it was in the late 1990s. The Bureau's findings were worse than many economists expected, and brought into sharp relief the toll the past decade, including the sharp declines of the financial crisis and recession, has taken on Americans at the middle and lower parts of the income ladder. The report comes as President Obama gears up to try to pass a jobs bill. An analyst said the bleak numbers should help him make his case for urgency, but they could also be used against him by Republican opponents seeking to highlight economic shortcomings on his watch as the election season gets underway. But does the election season always have to get in the way? So it seems. This is one more piece of bad news on the economy, said Ron Haskins, a director of the Center on Children and Families at the Brookings Institution. This will be another cross to bear by the administration. The past decade was also marked by a growing gap between the very top and very bottom of the income ladder. Median household income for the bottom tenth of the income spectrum fell by 12% from a peak in 1999, while the top 90th percentile dropped by just 1.5%. The census report said that the percentage of Americans living below the poverty line last year, 15.1%, was the highest level since 1993. The poverty line in 2010 for a family of four was $22,314. In other words, the rich have gotten richer and the poor have become even poorer. And this year is not likely to be any better, economists said. Stimulus money has largely ended, and state and local governments have made deep cuts to staff and to budgets for social programs, both likely to move economically fragile families closer to poverty. Minorities were hit hardest. Blacks experienced the highest poverty rate at 27%, up from 25% in 2009, and Hispanics rose to 26% from 25%. For whites, 9.9% lived in poverty, up from 9.4% in 2009. Asians were unchanged at 12.1%. An analysis by the Brookings Institution estimated that at the current rate, the recession will have added almost 10 million people to the ranks of the poor by the middle of the decade, if not sooner. Liberal policymakers say the rise is coinciding with a political mood that seems to have hardened against spending on social programs that could help reduce the sting of a bad economy for the poor. In other words, it's a season of mean. Joblessness was the main culprit pushing more Americans into poverty, economists said. Last year, approximately 48 million people ages 18 to 64 did not work even 1 week out of the year, up from 45 million in 2009. Once you've been out of work for a long time, it's a very difficult road to get back. median income fell across all working age categories, but the sharpest drop was among the young working Americans ages 15 to 24, which experienced a decline of 9%. According to the census figures, the median annual income for a male, full-time, year-round worker in 2010, $47,715, was virtually unchanged. In 2010 dollars from its level in 1973, when it was $49,065, said Sheldon Danziger, professor of public policy at the University of Michigan. Particularly hard hit, Mr. Danziger said, were those who do not have college degrees. The median full-time male worker has made no progress on average, he said. The recession continued to push Americans, particularly young people, to move in with family and friends to save money. The group of 25 to 34-year-olds showed a 25% jump in living at home in the period from 2007, when the recession began, to 2011. Of that group, nearly half were living below the poverty line when their parents' incomes were excluded. The poverty level for a single-person household was $11,344. We're risking a new underclass, said the director of the Institute for Research and Poverty at the University of Wisconsin, Madison. Young, less educated adults, mainly men, can't support their children and form stable families because they are jobless, he added. But even the period of economic growth that came before the recession did little for the middle and bottom wage earners. The period from 2001 to 2007 was the first recovery on record where the level of poverty was deeper and median income of working age people was lower at the end than at the beginning. In other words, America is in a whole lot of trouble. Even before the recession hit, a lot of people were falling behind. This may be adding to people's sense of urgency about the economy. The suburban poverty rate at 11.8% appears to be the highest since 1967. Last year, more Americans fell into deep poverty, defined as less than half the official poverty line, or about $11,000, with the ranks of that group increasing to 20.5 million people, or about 6.7% of the population. Poverty also swallowed more children, with approximately 22% of all children living below the poverty line, up from 20.7% in 2009. And there is something wrong with that picture. The report also said the number of uninsured Americans increased by 900,000 to 49.9 million. Those covered by employer-based insurance continued to decline in 2010, down to about 55%, while those with government-provided coverage continued to increase, up slightly to 31%. Employer-based coverage was down from 65% in 2000, the report said. So, in other words, economic conditions in the United States are not getting better. They're getting worse, and rapidly. Yes, America is in trouble, and this too is another sign of the end times, transition days, which is a continuing day-by-day process of extraordinary happenings, changes, and events, because it's about what kind of world are we leaving to the future generations. James chapter 4. From where do come wars and fightings among you? Come they not from, even of your lusts that war in your members? 2. Ye lust and have not, ye kill and desire to have, and cannot obtain. Ye fight and war, yet ye have not, because ye ask not. 3. Ye ask and receive not, because ye ask wrongly, that ye may consume it upon your lusts. For, ye adulterers and adulteresses, know ye not that the friendship of the world is enmity with God? Whosoever therefore will be a friend of the world is the enemy of God. 5. Do ye think that the Scripture says in vain, the Spirit that dwells in us lusts to envy? 6. But he gives more grace. Wherefore he say, God resists the proud, but gives grace unto the humble. Revelation chapter 14, verse 14. And I looked, and behold, a white cloud, and upon the cloud one sat like unto the Son of Man, having on his head a golden crown, and in his hand a sharp sickle. 15. And another angel came out of the temple, crying with a loud voice to him that sat on the cloud, Thrust in thy sickle, and reap, for the time is come for thee to reap, for the harvest of the earth is ripe. 16. And he that sat on the cloud thrust in his sickle on the earth, and the earth was reaped. 17. And another angel came out of the temple which is in heaven, he also having a sharp sickle. 18. And another angel came out from the altar, which had power over fire, and cried with a loud cry to him that had the sharp sickle, saying, Thrust in thy sharp sickle, and gather the clusters of the vine of the earth, for her grapes are fully ripe. 19. And the angel thrust in his sickle into the earth, and gathered the vine of the earth, and cast it into the great winepress of the wrath of God. Again, everything is connected, and everything is numbered. It's also called fate or destiny. It's time for all prophecy to be fulfilled, and these are more signs.